Um, I've uncovered lots of corruption as I've moved along over the last 6 years since COVID. Before COVID, I didn't think anything of. I thought conspiracy theorists were all full of rubbish. I really did. And I've met so many who've guided me through absolute hell. Some people are getting to the point, including me, that we need to start speaking up and we need to start really pushing back. Not necessarily in violent means, but by conversations like this, but making them go out so we all know what's going on. I mean, just as an example, through the pandemic, the local hospital to me, I'm regional in New South Wales, just outside the city, but still regional. The local hospital to me was sending me mental health patients because they couldn't cope. I've got lots of knowledge. Just as an example, there was a spate of suicides of 10-year-old children at the start of the pandemic. Why didn't we hear about this on the media? Like, there are children who've lost the bulk of their lives and died by suicide because we didn't think about the human rights of children. But the system is like a big behemoth. It chews people up and spits them out. If you don't go along with the beast, it's a beast. It's a devilish system now. It's horrendous. I've uncovered some major things myself as well. And just leading up to this conversation, I've been even doing some research, and I feel like I want to share it with your audience, and that we need to start talking about this, is how much our DNA is altered by trauma, how much our DNA is altered by medicine, really, how much our DNA is changed because of drugs that you might be taking. I believe it's happened with the vaccines. I believe it's happened with all manner of different types of drugs and medications. And I can almost prove that it's happened to me. And this has only just come to light because of doing my own research. I know how the system harms. And I know there's people that need to be outside the system to call the system out. Because if you're inside the system, you are blind to how the system hurts. And that's the problem with our system, is you've got so many people trying to do the right thing and trying to do good, but they can't see how the system is harming even their clients. They also, or patients, we talk clients, patients. If people want a different outcome, they have to go somewhere else differently. If they want the same outcome, it's the same. If you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to get what you've always got. And I'm lucky enough in my life that I was privileged enough to study different.
Hello everyone, my name is Jenny Rose Antwerther, and today we welcome back Renee McDonald to Health Alliance Australia's podcast. We are discussing a very important subject of when people in high-level positions can use their influence to bully family members, even going so far as to cause parental alienation, suicide, loss of custody, property rights, and career sabotage, etc., etc. Renee has a unique perspective and position because she is not only an Australian counsellor, psychotherapist, coach, clinical supervisor, trainer, author, founder, wife, mum of 3, dog owner, but she also has 2 decades of professional experience and a lived experience of medical trauma and understands intimately the family system complexity, paediatric health advocacy, informed consent and privacy concerns, and the cumulative impact that that can occur when systems fail to listen. She specializes in helping people access the right support before crisis becomes the only doorway to care. She's grounded in a deeply person-centered approach and a commitment to preventative mental health and well-being. Founder of Wellbeing for Me, created to help people find personalised wellbeing support that genuinely fits their needs, and Australian Online Therapy Training, AOTT, through which she trained more than 1,000 clinicians in online therapy practice during the early stages of the pandemic. She is also the creator and owner of Butterfly Courage, initially her private practice that turned into a body of work that is focused on courage, recovery, transformation, and rising after rupture, and has developed Prime Matches, an integrative symbolic framework and therapeutic card deck that explores identity, alignment, archetypes, source, shadow integration, and human development. She brings a wealth of experience and knowledge, and we are very happy to have her with us here today. Thanks, Renee, for coming. That is impressive, very impressive list of achievements. You're like an all-round achiever.
Thank you. You know, what's fascinating is my life was not one of achievement initially. And my life is one of the phoenix rising from the ashes many, many times over.
I mean, like if someone was to read that, like, you know, you sort of read this because you want people to understand where you've got this wealth of experience, but it's quite intimidating for a lot of people to think, wow, you've got all this experience. And I think balanced with all of that and knowledge is your own lived experience of what it's actually like to be in a position of trauma and being bullied.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like a lot of doctors, for example, they treat patients, but they've never suffered a disease. So all they've got is a textbook. And a lot of therapists also have never had, although I think with therapy, a lot of people do get into that for various reasons because they want to resolve their own trauma. Was that for you, a similar situation? Is that how you ended up in this space?
Actually, no.
Wow.
Which is so interesting. My journey has been long and meandering. And one that I keep being humbled by. Almost due to the extensive bullying I've had in my life, I continue to be humbled by my experience. So I can have all the accolades in the world, but if I'm not able to speak to the person in front of me, then I don't have a career.
Yeah.
And I want to propose, if any doctor is listening to this, think about that. Without the shield of you being a doctor, could you have a career?
Yeah. And it's true, like if you didn't actually have those qualifications, you'd still be able to work. I mean, obviously it makes it easier with the actual system to work, but from my own perspective. And I think what was interesting when we first connected was you were talking about how people in positions of influence can cause harm to other people. I actually never considered that. And throughout the pandemic, I'm thinking to myself, a lot of people thought that, say, people in positions of influence, like say they were a doctor or they were married to certain families, that they had a choice. And when we were talking together, I was realizing, in fact, they had less choices, and we need to have a certain level of compassion for these people because the result of not complying or not conforming to a set of beliefs was actually very dire. Not just exile, but potentially loss of, not just loss of career, but loss of social networks, threats of perhaps even having children taken away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's been a lot of that. In fact, I've uncovered lots of corruption as I've moved along over the last 6 years since COVID. Before COVID, I didn't think anything of. I thought conspiracy theorists were all full of rubbish. I really did. And I've met so many who've guided me through absolute hell. And there's a saying in therapy when I was originally trained. So I was trained in the late 90s, early noughties, in therapy as and this is a side note, but I feel like this is important. Just so people can understand, I didn't just become a therapist because of my lineage. And I need to talk about my lineage in a minute. But, initially, I went straight from school into the entertainment business. I also worked in retail. Um, you know, I could actually say I could say this. God, I believe, set me up for my life. So again, we can talk about that, like, a bit, but I feel like I don't want this to be a religious conversation because otherwise we could get into all sorts of things. There's just so many things that have happened to me. One of my good friends says, Renee, it's like every time you fall down, there's just the right person there just to pick you up at just the right time. And I know that if I didn't have that person there, then they wouldn't have been able to show me something else, and that person there wouldn't have been able to show me something else. It's like my life has been full of so many layers, like an onion, but it's every time it gets stripped back just a little bit more, 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 like one of those babushka dolls, if you know them. The mamushka, babushka dolls, like take
Yep.
one layer off, but I also learnt through my original training in the late 90s that life was like a babushka doll. So I wasn't afraid of myself when another layer comes off. I wasn't afraid of it. And I've done over 20 odd years of therapy on myself, trying to come to terms with some of the things that happened to me growing up. And regularly, my family growing up, I don't really want to refer to any one person in particular, but it's just a whole system of people who kept turning on me. The amount of people I've had turn on me is just out of control. I really should be dead by suicide because of the amount of people who've turned on me. I've had so many unusual things happen to me. And I feel like I need to say to the listeners now, hashtag trigger warning. Okay. And, you know, even when I pick up the phone and I ring, like I've had a number of therapists over the years, and I ring up a new therapist. This is kind of just recently, had to ring up yet another new therapist. Because I'm a therapist trying to get therapy, that's even trickier because I've got 24 years of experience and then I've done over 20 years of therapy. So I often know my own mind better than the therapist. Like they talk about it as being analysis, analyst and analysand. So the analysand is, so if I'm coming to therapy, you're the one being analysed. And so in that, I've already analysed myself so much, and judged myself at different times, but also come back from things at different times so much that, and this is no arrogance, it's that literally it can take me 6 months to fill in a therapist on the work that I've done in the past. Right? So this is the complexity of my life. And both the stripping back and the phoenix moments and all of these other kinds of things that happened to me. I shouldn't be alive. I've had, again, hashtag 3 near-death experiences. I shouldn't be alive.
Yeah.
But I am.
Yeah. And I
My
think
life is
part of
just
it,
crazy, in a miracle.
It's like you're talking about how various people come into your life and have saved you.
Mm.
But on
Yeah.
the flip side of this, you come into many other people's lives and save them.
Yes.
So I think there
Yes.
is this energy that's happened, especially it's kind of accelerated in the last few years, where we've found
Yeah.
very much people like ourselves that are being able to connect,
Mm.
whether it's virtually or on the real world, that are in
Yep.
alignment and have been bullied.
Yep.
For some reason, the system itself does not like independent thinking or people being
Yep.
authentic self. It wants us to
Yeah.
conform to a certain set of beliefs or else. And I think this is what you're
Yeah.
expressing here, that you grew up in a certain code, if you like, and you didn't fit that
Yeah.
box.
Yes. Absolutely. I never fit the box. Now, some people listening into this will say, oh, she's autistic, she's got this, she's got that. But every time I go to a specialist, they actually can't fit me into a box. Like after I turned, 25 or something like that, I've gone to lots of different places. They can't fit me into a box. I literally smashed the box open.
Well,
That's
maybe
my
we're not meant
life.
to live in a box. Maybe that's the whole
Yeah.
evolution that we're actually all
Yeah.
coming to understand, is that these boxes, these roles that in society that seem to have served society, but not really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe we are
Yeah.
the change makers. That the ground is
Yeah.
ripe for all the experiences and the trauma that you have had to alchemize it into
Yeah.
something that's truly positive. And you've actually done it here in all the
Yeah.
support you're giving, and certainly evolving as it goes
Yeah.
along, as you meet more and more people
Yeah.
on the journey who
Yeah.
also experience
Yes.
more things that you're not.
Yeah.
You're unique, but you're not that unique, if you like. If you know what I mean? Like, I
No.
think a lot of people that will
No.
be
Of
listening to this
course.
right now
Yeah.
will actually resonate and say, yes, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
feel that.
100%. 100%. I feel, yeah, absolutely. So I feel like I'm only like a small percentage of the population. I know that the bulk of the population haven't experienced what I've experienced. And I know I've been told by some members of my family, stop creating drama, Renee, stop doing this. But in a lot of ways, I've been targeted on many fronts. And imagine if you've been targeted for most of your life, what happens? That's my
Mhm.
life. Yeah. And so that's pretty hellish, though I still find joy. But in a lot of ways I see myself as a refugee in Australia.
Yeah, I think a lot of us feel that way because we don't quite belong
Yeah.
here. We
Yeah.
don't feel like
Yeah.
the system or the institutions represent us.
Yeah. They don't. Down to the like even just this um Pauline Hanson versus like Elbow versus all this kind of liberal stuff at the moment. For me, like I'm not even paying attention to that.
Mhm.
I've moved way beyond politics. I initially, at the start of the pandemic, I thought someone's going to push back for human rights within the political system for this. And I was shocked and appalled that no one pushed back within the system for human rights. I was shocked.
Yeah, and I sort of think when I've kind of reflected on myself, I've thought, is it a result of conditioning? Like, is it a result of the fact that, the bulk majority of people have gone through the schooling system and learnt to
Mm,
conform and, follow rules
yeah,
and being rewarded
yeah,
for conformity? So
yeah,
if you get, a
yeah,
straight A student, you're almost conditioned to that
yeah,
reward. You've memorized something,
yeah,
the absolute truth, and now we've got AI coming along that's going to reinforce all of that. So people have
yeah,
literally, they worry about AI, they worry about being um, replaced by drones or
yeah,
other machines, but have people actually become machines in order to be replaced?
yeah,
I mean, you had to sort of break
yeah,
the human spirit in a way. So you had to
yeah,
have,
yeah, yeah,
you couldn't have these individual working models out there doing their own thing because that would be impossible to replicate. But to break the human
yeah,
spirit, to create these systems, so you go into a practice,
yeah,
whether you're a doctor or a dentist or
yeah,
an average
yeah,
worker or even retail or
yeah,
whatever it is. And they give you a set of
yeah,
instructions, and this is how you follow them. These are the codes, this is
yeah,
the behavior.
yeah,
Every workplace
yeah,
has these rules.
yeah,
And then it's easy enough
yeah,
to just go, well, let's just replace all of that with a
yeah,
system or with
yeah,
a robot.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But I think people like you and I and other people who are different thinkers, that I feel like there's just different thinkers and more independent, um, are hard to fit in that box anyway too. We literally break the mold on many different fronts. I want to talk to though the system and me, because this is what's fascinating probably for both me saying this and also probably you hearing this, because I feel like I want to go somewhere, is I was brought up in the system heavily, heavily. And I was a straight A student in primary school
Mm.
and all that. And I was set to become a doctor because one of my family members was a doctor, like all that kind of stuff, right? But because of the medical trauma I experienced, I literally could not become a doctor because I panic at the mere thought of doing the things that were done to me to someone else.
Yeah.
So, so people don't even realize that this is real. There are people out there like myself. I know there's at least 33 kids that experienced what I experienced. So this is also a call out to them. If anyone wants to come forward, I'm happy to talk about my experiences about some of that. Um, but in addition to that, it's that if if people want a different outcome, they have to go somewhere else differently.
Mm.
If they want the same outcome, they're the same. If you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to get what you've always got. And I'm lucky enough in my life that I was privileged enough to study differently. So I paid some serious money to study the therapy that I did. So that was independent training, not university. But that independent training became a university, ironically enough. And I trained there when it was an independent training organization. Um, and that changed my life. And this was in my mid 20s. And it opened my eyes to so many people of difference. And I think I would have probably become a psychologist, or I probably would have become um, um, something else. I mean, I had ideas of becoming a social worker or other things. And the fascinating thing is, most social workers have to be trained by the system to break the system. That's
Mm.
social work training. How's that going to work when you're paid by the system? Like, so this is what we need to start thinking about. I mean, social workers are paid to kind of, push up against the system, but really then it's just mouthpiece stuff. It's like, yeah, 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 just and that's also related to women, because 90% of women, 90% of social workers are women, 85-90% of therapists are women, um, and so we get independent or alternative training, which I'm happy to do because I do that, um, but then we don't get accepted either. And then I've gotten pushback in my career throughout my whole career, because of the choices I made. So Medicare, I need to talk to Medicare as well. And there's a reason why I've done all the things that I've done, is because I've never been accepted in the mental health
Mm.
field.
Because you
Right.
have to be
So,
accepted, you have to conform to the same rules and
yep,
belief systems,
yep.
and you can't think outside of those.
But everybody has kept saying to me, Renee, why don't you become a psychologist and get the Medicare rebate? But there was this little being inside of me, and my 4-year-old self and my 7-year-old self, that says, no, because I know differently. I know differently. I know how the system harms. And I know there's people that need to be outside the system to call the system out. Because if you're inside the system, you are blind to how the system hurts. And that's the problem with our system, is you've got so many people trying to do the right thing and trying to do good, but they can't
Mm.
see how the system is harming even their clients. They also, like, or patients, we talk clients, patients, consumers, it doesn't matter, across health, mental health, just the whole gamut. And from my perspective, I see all these psychologists, often doing good work, and there are some that do great work, not taking anything away from this. But I'm talking about how the system harms them from being able to almost like run free in the field and, do ecotherapy if they choose, or do, there's so much evidence and proof of, say, equine therapy being amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you get some of that support through the NDIS. You can do equine therapy through the NDIS, but you can't. I mean, victims should be given equine therapy. I'd love to do equine therapy with people. As much as I love horses, and I don't have any of my own, but there's so much good work that is not being tapped into. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
So the research is clear about dance movement therapy too. And I've done a bit of training in that area. Dance movement therapy is great for people who've been sexually abused.
Wow.
But it's not supported and not funded. And the dance movement therapists are actually going out of work at a rate of knots. It's atrocious. So we have some of the answers to a lot of things in like long-term therapy research, but the government keeps like literally tuning out from what actually works, and going to a psychologist once a month if you get 10 sessions every year is not enough. There's a lot of proof that this style works, where weekly at first and then petering out is a better approach than monthly, because you don't get to know your therapist. You don't actually get to know why they work the way that they do. How do they listen? What is their experience? Can they hold space for all of your trauma? Can they hold space for what you've gone through? And for me, I have to keep challenging myself on that. I do my ongoing PDs because I'm part of professional associations. So I tick all those boxes as well. But in order to like hold the space with some government funding, which I get, but it's more piecemeal. And I do that on purpose because I work with victims, and we've had my previous person on here. He wanted to come forward, and I need to say this out loud. He actually pushed for that. So that's a side note. He wanted to speak out about.
Yeah, that was Stuart from our last interview. People want to go and watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's really important that I don't that I say this out loud. I've never ever pushed anyone towards speaking out against anything. But some people are getting to the point, including me, that we need to start speaking up, and we need to start really pushing back. Not necessarily in violent means, but by conversations like this, but making them go out so we all know what's going on. I mean, just as an example, through the pandemic, the local hospital to me, I'm regional in New South Wales, just outside the city, but still regional. The local hospital to me was sending me mental health patients because they couldn't cope. I've got lots of knowledge. Just as an example, there was a spate of suicides of 10-year-old children at the start of the pandemic. Why didn't we hear about this on the media? Like, there are children who've lost the bulk of their lives and died by suicide because we didn't think about the human rights of children. Like, my heart breaks for that. I know if I personally was a child right now, I probably wouldn't be here.
Children move their bodies a lot, right? So, and as we know, it seems like the body of evidence is that trauma is held in the body. So a lot of the system is focused on the mind and therapy that way.
Yes.
But they don't seem to have the holistic mindset of movement of the body and even nutrition. for example.
Yep.
It seems to
Yep.
like, okay, well, we'll just give them drugs if they've got an issue. We're not
Yeah.
looking to gut health.
Yeah.
And I imagine
Yeah.
that this is the sort of framework that you're looking towards, a more expanded view of health. So for
Yep.
the individual,
Yep.
say, okay, what's wrong
Yep.
here? What are they eating?
Yes.
How are they living? How are they
Yes.
sleeping?
Yeah. Yep.
What sort of
Yep.
exercise do they do? What
Yep.
supports can we
Yep.
give them? Because people in that sort of
Exactly.
situation actually need help. I mean,
Yes.
the do-it-yourself
Absolutely.
option it's very, very difficult. Only the strong would survive it, especially if
Yeah.
it's actually within a framework of
Yeah.
a even the professional families. I think some people think, oh, a professional family where you've got all these people and doctors and nurses and
Mm,
psychologists within
mm.
it, that you would have had all the supports there to help you through
Yeah.
whatever childhood trauma that you had.
Yes.
But instead, it was quite the
Yes.
opposite for you.
Yeah. A bit of both. It
Hmm.
was a mixed bag. Um, so, so then because we were heavily in the medical model growing up, then only the medical model really gives you an answer.
So you don't think they're
No?
any more open these days to these allied health interventions
Um,
or
I think somewhat, but also one of the biggest concerns is that the system is trying to take over my space along with all my colleagues' space as well. Um, and so they're trying to literally almost suck a fish, for want of a better word, um, all of the other alternative methods so that nothing else exists other than the system. And that's really problematic. We need to have people outside the system call the system out. We need to have, like, I believe we need to have two systems. I think one system is problematic because it provides a monopoly. If you look at business modeling, monopolies are often a problem. Like you look at the monopoly game board, like
yeah.
it's a problem. Um, Competition can be a really good thing. It actually in business wise, as well as even in politics and in systems, competition can be a good thing. It actually forces you to think. It forces you to do better. Um, so yeah, competition's not a bad thing, but the whole other side of that though is you don't want to be competing for clients or competing for that. So there's a limit where competition can only go so far, and then the whole point of the system should be health care, and we've lost the care, and instead it's health finance almost. We should be calling it that, or we
Yeah.
should be calling it like health money. I mean, our taxes pay for a mediocre system. Our taxes pay for systems that harm. We should be able to hold the government account for that's my tax money that's paying for that person. Why don't we give them different options? I shudder to say this, but the American system is better than ours.
Really? I mean, I think what we're
Mm.
talking about too is a collaborative approach rather than us and them
Yep.
sort of thing.
Yes.
And I personally
Yes.
too have never been
Yeah.
one to be anti anything. Like they've sort of framed
Yeah.
us like the people want free
Yeah.
choice. If they want a cesarean, go
Yeah.
ahead. If they want a
Yeah.
natural birth,
Yeah.
go ahead. If they want to have
Yeah.
a home birth. But the
Yeah.
problem is, it seems to me that it's not just that. I mean, the dominant narrative is go to the hospital, go to the system, have a
Yeah.
cesarean, elective,
Yeah.
induce all
Yeah.
the drugs and so forth. That's the dominant thing. But that
Yeah.
women who choose to do the opposite, to go a natural route,
Mm.
are actually
Yeah.
demonized. So
Yes, they are.
it's really
Yeah.
strange to me. It's like, well, why can't the two coexist? Because
Yes. Yeah.
women can choose, but is it that they feel
Yeah.
threatened by the fact that women
Yeah.
are making an active choice in their decision
Yes.
making?
Yes. Yes. But I also think, and this is something I've uncovered, I think they do that to cover all their sins.
Okay. So they could give a
So
scapegoat. So that this woman that's chosen a natural birth, if something goes wrong, and you always hear the one case
yeah,
in 10 years where something goes
yeah,
wrong in a home birth, it's
yeah,
front page
yeah,
news everywhere. The woman is
yeah,
hunted down like a
yeah,
witch. And that
yep,
everyone
yep,
put through the mill, despite the fact that there's someone
yep,
that's probably grieving a wife or a baby
yes, yeah,
who has no
yep,
compassion for that person. They would never do the same for the numerous
yep,
babies that die in hospital and women who die in the
Yep.
hospital system as a
Yep.
result of the medical system. That is totally
Yep.
buried. It was just, and in
Yep.
fact, I wonder if they even acknowledge it was
Mm.
a problem with their systems, or would they just say,
Yeah.
oh, it was just the woman's fault. But if it was just the
Yeah.
woman's fault, then when she could have just had a home birth anyway, right? It wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's the problem. So we either have a democracy or we don't. We
Mm.
either have the capacity to make choice or we don't. That's a bottom line from my perspective. You can't give choice and then take it away, because then we had no choice in the beginning.
Yeah. And I was thinking though, when you're
It's
talking about trauma, right, and the fact that you were
yeah,
traumatized and that's why you pushed back against the system, I was actually thinking that
yeah,
really the whole point of traumatizing children in the system
yeah,
is actually to bind
yeah.
them to the system. It's like more of a,
Oh,
for
100%.
some reason, for
100%.
some reason you
Yeah,
were the anomaly. Like you didn't have
yeah,
that trauma bond. It's like a lot of people were trauma bonded during the COVID times because they
yeah,
caused so much trauma, then they decided they would re-elect the same people that traumatized them in the first place, and
yeah,
follow this
yeah.
because it was safe. Okay, so it's all that they've known.
Mm,
But for some
um,
reason, you were able to break out of that. So I find that quite fascinating how that happened for you.
um, it's yes and no. I believe my whole life has been a setup.
Mm,
It's been a setup for what I've experienced the last 6 years. So I think it's more than what you've just brought. It's so deep. So the trauma I experienced growing up was reenacted through COVID.
yeah, just like Stuart.
Yeah, yeah, and um, and I wasn't going to let it happen again. But the system is like a big behemoth.
Mm,
It chews people up and spits them out if you don't go along with the beast. It's a beast. It's a devilish system now. It's horrendous. So um, I could not go through it again. I wasn't being selfish. I just knew I couldn't be a mother or even alive if I went along with everything the government said. I literally had to almost hibernate most of the time through the pandemic. You know, I had to, like, I tried to speak out at different points, but I noticed that no one was listening.
yeah.
Everyone with, I would call it, everyone was trauma bonded. So uh, in therapeutic terms, it's called trauma bonding.
Mm,
But then maybe you're talking about something even greater than trauma bonding, trauma binding. So if
mm,
it's binding, then not only are you bonded, you're trapped too. Yeah. So
yeah.
there's the system entrapment. And what I've noticed is that coercive control is now almost the norm. And
Mm,
this is what's happened to me and my family is that my eldest child is now trauma binded to my family of origin. I can't say how or why, I won't go into all the detail today, but she's trauma binded to them and she can't escape.
mm,
And I believe she thinks at the moment like it's okay, but it's not okay when you use an eldest child of mine against me
mm.
and as a pawn in a sick game.
It's just horrendous what you've gone through. Because you know, losing a child is like when they're alive is a form of
Yeah.
grief that is worse than losing a
Mm.
child because you know
Yeah.
they're there, but you can't access them. It's like
Yeah.
whereas if a child has actually passed away, well, that grief is horrendous.
mm,
There's
mm,
so many people experiencing this kind of trauma
mm.
with their children for
Yeah,
ideological
yeah,
reasons, not just,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
system has and to me, that was the greatest harm that they did, was the way they divided families during this whole pandemic.
yeah. Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, the family
yeah,
as relation and friendships, and they
yeah.
did it in a very psychological warfare kind of way. And now people are
Mm,
stuck in these mental prisons of thought,
mm,
that even the people
yeah,
that have harmed you,
mm,
they're stuck too. They can't get out of and break out of that mental thought, because I guess they've also been raised and encouraged. Narcissism is almost encouraged in our society.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have been called that too, just by the way. And
Yeah.
I have been called that because of my choices. Um, if I could choose another way, I would, but I can't. In order to live, I have to choose the opposite to the system. I cannot do it anymore. And so that's one of my biggest issues moving forward.
Mm.
And that I've just been traumatized too much by systems.
I mean, I think a lot of us came together at the start of COVID and we thought, let's beat the system. We'll go to the courts, we'll fight with
Yeah, yeah,
petitions, we'll fight with
yeah,
protests.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
raise all this activism and try and change
yeah,
the system from within. And I think the
yeah,
conclusion for, a lot of us who have fought this is that we can't do it because it's like fighting the ocean tide. But what we can do is
yeah,
create a reality outside of the system that is
yeah,
better than
yeah,
anything the system can ever provide. That there is
exactly,
true healing, there is
exactly.
true wealth in
Yeah,
relationships, true
yeah,
connection.
yes,
And when you have
yes,
something that is truly authentic, they
yeah,
can't, they can't, the fake falls away on itself. The system will collapse
yes,
on itself. And I truly think that
yes,
ultimately it's not our responsibility anymore to collapse the system. The
no,
people in the system need to change within it. They're those who've chosen to be
yeah,
in it. Otherwise, they choose to leave it, which essentially collapses
yeah,
the actual system.
yeah, 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 it does. But eventually it becomes more and more corrupt the more you've got anything to do with the system. So I've uncovered widespread child abuse in my local area, and some things I can't even speak to. It's that I've uncovered widespread abuse. Um, and the weird thing is, um, there's been false accusations um, on my husband as well, and we can prove it's false. And so the system often accuses others of what they're doing themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the best form
And
of
so,
defense is attack, right?
yes, yes. And so we've had to defend our family against all of these family attacks. We had so many attacks come at us because my youngest daughter was really ill, and there's a lot behind that too.
Mm.
So um, I feel like I want to talk to that in generality because it's not my story to share. It's my
Yeah.
daughter's story to share. So, um, but I've uncovered some major things myself as well. And just leading up to this conversation, I've been even doing some research, and I feel like I want to share it with your audience, and that we need to start talking about this. Um, is how much our DNA
Yeah.
is altered by trauma, how much our DNA is altered by medicine,
Mm.
really, how much our DNA is changed because of drugs that you might be taking. It, I believe it's happened with the vaccines. I believe it's happened with all manner of different types of drugs and medications. And I can almost prove that it's happened to me. And this has only just come to light because of doing my own research.
Yeah, and also food, right? So they're also trying to put, obviously they're
Mm,
genetically engineering
mm,
food, but I
yep.
think the whole when you go into the science of it, and it's almost a war against humanity
Yeah, yeah,
in a way that
yeah,
it's like people can talk about it, it's just about money, or maybe it is, but it seems to be a lot
mm,
darker than that, about the
yeah, yeah,
controlling of the human mind. And I don't know
yeah,
if you watch the interview I did with Professor uh, Giardino, and he worked for DARPA, and we were talking
mm,
about literally mind control. You know, the next
mm,
level
mm.
up from just psychology, being able to actually influence people's minds with whether
Oh, yeah,
remotely, through radio waves. And yeah,
yeah,
and also there's other things that you can do, you know, biological attacks, chemical
mm,
changes, like
mm,
what you're talking about.
mm,
And we don't really talk about
mm.
this enough. A lot of the times when people are having, say, a mental breakdown, it's like their fault somehow. Society seems to feel
Yeah,
like that person
yeah,
failed. But in reality, we
yeah,
are failing these people who are on the
yeah,
streets, they were
yeah,
born perfect as children. They obviously came through the
yeah,
world with a mother and
yeah,
father at some point.
yeah,
There's very few that end up
mm,
in the state system, and even so, that
mm,
they're often, you know, in foster care. So, how
yeah,
is it that we are having such an epidemic of mental health? Like, what is it? Like 1 in 6 people are on some sort of depression drug, or, you know, like we
yeah,
are in crisis level here. And when we
yeah,
did the interview with Stuart, I realized,
mm,
and all this data coming out about Australia having
mm,
access to the highest access to child pornography in the world,
mm, yep,
we've got to really look at ourselves and think, wow, this is our community. These are the people you walk out in the
yeah,
street, you see at the shopping centres, see
yep,
at the schools,
yep,
see at the hospitals.
yep,
These are the people that
yep,
represent our country. And we're looking at it like
yeah,
some sort of extreme view,
mm,
but it's
yep,
not. It's actually very, very real. Like even
no,
abuse in
yeah,
hospitals. I was quite surprised that this woman won $250,000 for awarded during pregnancy that she had been violated.
yeah,
I was quite surprised because I was violated post-pregnancy and I was raped in ICU.
yeah,
And then I was threatened
mm,
because should
yeah,
I speak out, they'd
mm,
threatened me with child protection, and I had a choice: go
yeah,
their way and try
yeah,
and get compensation and
mm,
potentially be up against the system of child protection,
yeah,
or just pretend it didn't
yeah,
happen. And that's what I did.
mm,
I did it. I chose my family because that was
yeah,
I wasn't going to be able to
mm,
beat the system. And I think here we've
mm,
kind of come across this. It's like, how do we navigate this
mm,
space? We know the system is
yeah,
toxic. The people there are trauma binded
mm,
to it. A lot of them
yes,
don't feel like they have an escape mechanism, not just because
mm,
they can't leave
mm,
their job or they can't,
mm,
you know,
mm,
lose that income. But they don't even know what to
mm,
do. Like, what do you do if you've trained
yeah,
all your life as a doctor and you suddenly realize it's poisoning people and you're doing more harm than good? What do you do with your life?
yeah, yeah, good question. I feel like I have some answers.
Do tell.
um, and this is kind of what people overseas are doing. Like we're not looking overseas enough
Oh.
here in our country. Um, I do believe that Australians and you know this is my challenge back to you, but it's like Australians think we've got a good system
Mm,
and that if we somehow even indoctrinated that the system is good and that anything else would then have to be bad, even in our psyche, so much so that then we don't look outside Australia to what is actually working anywhere else.
yeah. We're the
And
lucky country, you know.
yeah, yeah, but we've been brainwashed. We've been brainwashed, um, you know, to have a house, you know, like the first home buyers grant. We've been brainwashed to, you know, have be the lucky country, to have the white picket fence, to have the mum, dad, and 2 kids, have all these
And the
kinds of
dog.
things, and no one questions this. No one. Everyone just trudges along and does the same as those people before them, and then they die.
Yeah.
Our lives, I believe, are worth way more than that. And so, what do I know actually works? I've been to some absolutely amazing events in the last 4 years in particular, and I know it works. So, quantum breath work works, Wim Hof breath work works, um, Dan Brûlé's breath work. There's all these amazing, amazing people. It's free. We
Wow.
need to be shouting this from the rooftops. I'm happy to talk to anyone about that and take people through the process. And obviously, if you contact me, I'd need to charge for that, but that's that. I just charge for my time. But in order to learn it, you can look these people up on YouTube and all these kinds of places. People like you and I should be doing more of that. So I believe it's not just food and it's not just health. Um, you know, we're missing wisdom. And the therapists in the room often have wisdom. Because for me, I've listened to thousands and thousands of people. So I have case studies up here that I could talk to, but I can kind of put together a smattering of different case studies. But then the medical people in the room say that's not research, that's anecdotal. What a load of rubbish. I can see patterns a mile off now because of all the thousands and thousands of people that I've seen over the years. And even the hundreds of people I've trained to become therapists as well. Like I can see patterns. So I think there's answers in pattern recognition. I think there's answers in breathing properly, because if we're not breathing properly, we are then stuck in fight or flight, and then we
Yeah.
go nowhere. Yeah. So I think breath work is going to be it's going to be so important. I think we need to do more intergenerational trauma healing. And I just went to, I know you're down there in Melbourne. I went to an event in Melbourne. Just recently, I came down because I'm in New South Wales, but I came down for it. It's amazing. There were 70 women in the room, people who think like us. This is growing. It's growing. The women's movements are growing, and it can't be stopped anymore. We're finding each other again. But mostly it's the women finding each other. There was about 70 women and one man, if that gives you an indication. So there's a lot of things going on in professional spaces, but where the professional meets the personal.
Mm.
It's like a call out to say, we've had enough. We've had enough of trauma being created in our lives. I wasn't listened to by the doctors in the hospital, in my local regional hospital, or in the amazing children's hospital in the big city. So one of the biggest things we can do is listen to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And breathwork is a very interesting thing, because after I did my 19-day water fast, I actually moved into breathwork and realized how
Mm.
important it was. And
Mm.
then a lot of various things happen, as you say, where
Yeah.
you get various information and knowledge. And one of the things when you were
Mm.
saying just then about men, why that
Yeah.
might be, and I saw this, sometimes a reel pops up, and this reel just popped up, and it was very interesting because this guy was talking about how men have framed their life journey in terms of roles, not relationships.
Yeah.
And of course,
Yes.
they have
Yeah.
this set of, they do X, Y, and Z, and they think that's it. That's my
Yeah.
role as a husband, as a provider, as
Yeah.
a son.
Yep.
But they don't
Yep.
really enter into the intimate space of the heart. And where women
Yeah.
are moving
Yep.
into that space of the heart. And so it's
Yeah.
relationship based. And
Yep.
because of that, we end up with these, because of the role issues, like the the question evolved. We have this whole manosphere stuff that's evolving online, and you should be
Mm,
doing this, you should be doing that, but not people are no longer
mm,
talking to each other. It's
yeah.
a kind of a battle of the sexes, if you like, of who's wrong,
Mm,
who's more responsible than who, which I think
mm,
where we've
mm,
come full circle is realizing that we're all in this kind of toxic soup of culture here.
mm,
We've been born
yep,
into it. Some of us have managed to escape into
yep,
a higher kind of frequency. And there
yep.
is no going back and kind of trying to pull someone out. We certainly will be able to give them a hand
Mm,
out if they want to come out. But if you
yep.
stay within that toxic soup of society, that we're whatever that
Mm,
structure might be, it's going to impact on
mm,
you. Whereas if you're going to move
yeah.
like where you have into another space
Mm,
where you've got these 70
yeah.
women together and that collective energy,
Yeah.
that must have been incredibly
Yeah.
amazing and empowering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no matter what any of the men in this space say, it's happening and they won't be able to stop it. That's my feeling about it now. And the other thing is, women have wisdom because we bear all of humanity through our bodies.
Yeah.
And we underestimate the importance of that. Again, you going back to you were talking before about it, doesn't matter how we birth, like Caesar or not. I had 3 Caesars with my 3 children, but I do believe, for me, because I know this about my maternal grandmother, she lost a baby in natural birth because she was so tiny. The baby effectively got crushed to going through. Um, it survived but didn't live. And I believe that would have happened to all 3 of my babies. So for that,
Mm.
I'm appreciative of modern medicine. So there are certain elements of modern medicine which are good, but it's not needed for all people all of the time. You know, we need modern medicine to help someone with a broken arm. We need modern medicine for lots of other things. And I know a lot of people would say for cancer treatment, I don't necessarily agree with that either, but that's a whole other conversation as well. Um, so, you know, and this is a bit controversial. However, I know people cured from cancer outside the system. I know quite a number of them.
No, I don't think that's very
And
controversial at all. But, because
it,
if you elevate the body, it's going to heal itself. Yeah.
yes, yes. And you look at Louise L. Hay and Anita Morjani. These are like major names in America, but we don't talk about that. I met someone at a quantum breathwork coaching training who had cured herself of cancer with breathwork.
Right. Yep. Because it's the nervous system. And I think here's what we're talking about as well, is regulating the nervous system. And from a very
Mm,
early age, it's become quite dysregulated. And
yeah,
I think
yep.
with the interview we did with Stuart that you were present with, one of the things that I really got out of that was generational trauma, how it gets passed
Oh,
on.
yeah,
And like even with
yeah.
your own example of your daughter, right? Like you can see it. You can
Mm,
see the generational
yeah,
patterns. Like you can eat the best food,
yeah,
you can live in the best
yeah.
situation, and that you pass down
Mm,
some trauma to your child. Um,
mm, mm,
and it's
mm,
being able to deal with that trauma and release it in some way from the body. So it
yeah,
stops the cycle. And I think that's the thing that we were
yeah,
talking about, the loops, right? How do we end
yeah.
the loops? And it's such a more complex and nuanced thing than simply just sending someone to therapy.
Oh, absolutely. And I think some of the answers is, I would say therapy is one answer for now. But then I'm also training coaching. Coaching's another answer, but usually the cherry on top.
Mm.
So I wouldn't say go to a coach first if you're heavily traumatized, because most coaches aren't trained in trauma informed work. So the reason why therapy works, and actually why people should be seeing a trauma informed therapist and someone who's actually works with trauma, not just that they thought they'd do a trauma informed training and that they're tick a box trauma informed. This is the other part of the problem. Okay, so
Mm.
you've got a trauma informed therapist if they know about trauma. You've got a trauma informed therapist if they actually can hold the space for whatever you need to bring into the space. If you've got a person who says, oh, sorry, I can't deal with that, they're not trauma informed. They're not going to be a human who is able to level with you. There have been some times where I have had to refuse clients, and it's usually more because my schedule, I literally, I'm human. There's difference there. I won't turn people away because I can't deal with their issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
And
prevalent do you think is the sexual abuse within the Australian landscape from your experience? How big is it of a problem in terms of the percentages of what you're seeing? Yeah.
I actually think that's not the right question. So that's interesting. Because I've worked with that space all of my career. Okay. What is the right question? How do we tackle these bad eggs? We do that work. We do that to people. How do we tackle the bad eggs? Because actually that's the biggest concern more than anything. Most people don't know this, that the average classic pedophile targets up to 140 children.
Wow,
right?
wow. Really?
So yeah, so you look at Jimmy Savile, 500 children. And from what I've heard, certain big names in Australia, I won't name names here because I don't want to be done for anything, right? Certain names I've heard have been hundreds of children for one person. If we find this out, rather than 99 suppression order, if you know what I'm talking about, so there's so many layers to this. The best man at our wedding was done over at his school, right? It's prolific, but that man impacted hundreds of children. So the issue is not what it seems. The issue is we have to get the top dogs.
Right. So often I think when people think percentages, they're looking at it like, oh, it's so widespread, as you were saying, where rather that there is more, it's more the exception that those people who are bad eggs, if you like, are causing enormous amount of harm. But somehow the system protects them because often they're in high-level places. I imagine that is why this is the case. And maybe because they've got to the high-level place that they're like, well, what else can I have? I've got everything in the world. I've got my boat, my yacht, I've got my house, my holiday house, maybe my airplane. But what else can I have? So it becomes this thing of desire for children. Not justifying, but I'm saying that, and if they're in that such high-level position, how does society take that down? When as we were talking about through this whole thing, if let's say you became a whistleblower or anyone, you're not just whistleblowing against this particular person, but this whole system is there to protect that particular person.
Exactly. Because some of them, and I've heard this again, I've heard it directly from people in the know. The Masons are a problem in this country, and they allow people to get away with things. And it then becomes jobs for the boys, and there's jobs for the boys in medicine too. I know this innately. Jobs for the boys. So there's jobs for the boys, there's jobs for the boys everywhere. And so this is how misogyny takes over. All of the secret men's societies, I can tell you it happens in the self-help movement too.
Yeah, for sure. Where there's victims, going to be predators, right?
Yes, but I've had everything flipped on me. So I had downloaded that I needed to do and to push my work further. Again, because I'm, spiritual and all that. I kept being asked to push my work further. And then I've been accused of being predatory, and I'm not. This is the thing. There's so many things have been flipped on me just because of potentially being in a position of power. So the system will flip on the different ones who take positions of power too, the ones who want to change things.
Yeah, and even though when you think about it, we all want the same thing. We want a better society. Well, you would hope so,
Yeah.
but I guess from a narcissistic personality, they still want to maintain their power status. But if we look at it on a
Yeah.
psychological level, it's like, can we heal
Yeah.
a narcissist? Can
Yeah.
we heal them so that they can be more, I don't know, they can fit into, they can cause less harm or to society? Can we put them in
I have,
places where they, because there's nothing, I see it more like a spectrum. So you've got the empath on one end of it, which is willing
yeah.
to die and sacrifice everything for self to the
Yeah.
point of
Yeah.
destruction. And then you've got the narcissist
Yeah.
on the other extreme, and you've got
Yeah.
extreme narcissists, right? But
Yeah.
in all aspects, it's all about how self is seen. And so the
Yeah.
narcissist, because of self-preservation, wants to be at the top, wants to be fully in
Yeah.
control of the situation. And that could be quite
Yeah.
panty in some regards in
Yeah.
society, and where they might be in a management position. But how do we end?
Yeah.
How do we support them to not become the dark side of the narcissist? Because ultimately they're going to
Okay.
end up harming themselves. Or you think, right?
Yeah.
At some point they're going to be
Yeah.
consequences of their actions, or maybe they
Yeah.
won't.
Well, and I've had everything flipped on me, so I can even talk to this. That it's been argued against me at different points in time that I've purposely harmed people. I've never purposely harmed anyone. And so I can talk to almost both sides of that as well, which is fascinating because I'm on the empath side. And my husband calls me masochistic at times, and that's the opposite. So I'm never trying to be sadistic, but I've been accused of that, which is like so damaging. So because sometimes then you'll die on your own sword rather than try and hurt someone else. And I've actively tried to do that even for all of my children. You know,
Mm.
and that's why it's so painful that my eldest has been taken away from me. But I think we're not thinking deep enough again about that. What I was trained in at a deep level was not to diagnose at all, or not to even put people in boxes at all.
Right. What
And
just
I think that,
relationships are you talking about? How do we?
well, I think we're boxing everyone too much. You're either a narcissist or an empath. You're either this or you're that. My life has been so complex. I'm neither that nor this nor that. I'm a
Because either,
survivor.
right, like if you're say a narcissist would box someone else as a narcissist, and so there's really no end to
Yeah,
the games, right? And of
yeah,
course, everyone's right in their own minds. So
yeah,
how do
yeah,
we
yeah,
see true? How do we? What is the
yeah,
outcomes that we want that will
yeah.
push us to
Okay,
self-development?
I feel like I have some answers to that too, and there are answers already, but the government's not doing it, so we can't look to them. But the answers are there with research in how to work with humans. We need lots and lots of groups of restorative justice.
Mm.
And so, what is restorative justice? I don't know if you've heard about this concept. It's some in Maori tradition and Aboriginal Australian tradition. They talk about it as circle sentencing, or they will have those kind of. It works in Indigenous culture. It should work in our culture too.
Yeah.
What is a narcissist's kryptonite? If we're going to go with the narcissist concept, what is
Yeah.
their kryptonite? Humiliation and shame.
So then you
Yeah,
let them face that through a
yeah,
circle of their peers.
yeah. So yeah, so and this is why it's why courts have juries. I mean, it seems like in Australia we hardly have juries anymore for some of these trials. Like it's just rubber stamped, and you've got pedophiles getting off um on things that they should go to jail for like 20 years for, and they get like 3 months, if in the worst case. Mostly it's either community service or they don't get anything at all.
Mm.
And so if we're going to have that kind of a system, then we need to have an alternative wake up system where it's then, hang on a minute, we get all the women and we get the guy, say, do get all instead of having class actions, we have to have class accountability.
Yeah. Because you can
You know,
get the justice and no accountability, right? And
yes.
you
And
might
that's
get
the
the money,
problem.
but nothing actually really
Yeah.
changes in the end. Of course, we know, for example, even say with the pharmaceutical companies, they've built
Yeah.
into their model, their business case,
Yeah.
fines.
Yeah.
So they've already said,
Yeah.
okay, look, we've committed a bit of fraud here, no problems.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
already hedged our
But
bets for that, and we'll make the profit in the end. So there's no one being held actually accountable for their
yeah. Yeah.
decisions or their
Yeah.
bad actions
Exactly.
and their violations.
Exactly. Exactly. I've had so many violations at the hands of doctors in my lifetime. Like even down to, giving birth to my second child, the doctor not even listening to me, and that caused a near-death experience for
Mm,
me. Like, I should have taken that to the government, but it's like I was just glad to have my life. And I was glad to have my baby okay, and my other child okay. And then no one in my family helped support me at that point in time, aside from my husband. It, you know, it's been shocking that all of the family around me then took off with my eldest when they've never heard all of these different elements of my life and how I've been actively targeted and things flipped on me throughout my life.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing,
But
isn't
I
it?
believe,
How do we build the
mm,
community? Like you're talking about preventative, this is part of
yeah, yeah,
your
yeah,
work. So
yeah,
to me, it's like we've talked about boxes, okay, and
yeah,
roles. And to me, it seems like a lot of Australians and people in general are stuck in boxes and roles. And
yeah,
like, look at our houses, for example. Everyone's
yeah,
got a fence,
yeah,
right? And in other countries, there's no fences. It's like all the kids play together and there's less boundaries
mm,
between people. There isn't
yeah,
even a sense these days of people visiting each other's houses anymore. Like when I was growing up,
mm,
that was very, very common.
yeah,
It's very less common now.
yeah,
Everyone's home is their
yeah,
museum, is their almost temple, if you like. So
yeah,
how do
yeah,
we get to the point where people even know each other in order to
mm,
be accountable
mm,
to each other?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, usually that requires people to actually come out of their homes. But if we've got these things, we're not going to come out of home, are we? So that's the other part of the other side of this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an
Is that we have,
irony, isn't it? Because here we are, we're broadcasting on
yeah,
to an audience in the hope of making
yeah,
change, but they've got to really take on board what is shared in this open forum and be able to apply
yeah,
it on a local level, whether that's in their own families, in their own
yeah,
communities. And
yeah,
that just takes a lot of work. I think there's a
yeah,
sense of there's a low effort in society. People just want something. Can I buy it? You know, is
yeah,
is there a pill for this ill, or can I?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
What
yeah, yeah,
work is
yeah,
involved in me obtaining
yeah.
this thing in terms of relationships? How do people build
Mm,
strong relationships with each other? And especially in this area of social media these days, where it's easy for
yeah,
people to all be sitting in their own box with their own phone,
yeah,
listening to some reel
yeah,
about some problem, and they go, "Oh, yes, that's the problem.
yeah,
I can tell
yeah,
that's the problem for my child." And they're all psychoanalyzing each other and putting each other
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
psychological boxes.
yeah,
How do we break, what are the practical ways that people can do to
yeah.
break
Great question.
those
Yeah.
boundaries?
Um, yeah, 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 great question. There's so many layers to that question. And I'm so lucky. Like, I've lived a lucky and an unlucky life almost all in one. Where I actually say to some people, I had the best, worst childhood. Yeah. Where I experienced literally the best and the worst of life. And some of the best things that I believe I did, and maybe I just instinctively knew this, was to pick up the phone to my friend and say, "Hey, how you doing? And let's have a yarn." Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I know you and I had a 3-hour conversation when we'd never spoken before.
Mm.
If anything of my legacy, I want to leave my legacy as someone who tries to connect to people. Even if you don't agree with me, I'll still try and connect with you.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think I did learn from my mother was to pick up the phone first.
Yeah. That's a lovely thing. No matter how hurt you
Yeah.
are, to
Mm.
reach out. I think that is
Yeah.
very good. I mean, I know like years ago, my eldest son hurt me terribly much. And so
Mm.
we weren't talking for quite a period of time. And then I had this
Mm.
thought, I am the older person here in this relationship. And I did. I reached out to him and we came to a healing process,
Mm.
which is ongoing. But
Mm.
I agree. I think this is a very, if anyone took something away from this podcast today, that would be a
Mm.
real game changer for them to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Even today, we've got all these devices. You can just leave a voice message for someone,
Yep.
right? Like if
Yep.
you feel not
Yep.
confident enough to speak your truth, like I think in terms of
Mm.
sending a really sensitive, emotional message, it comes across better
Mm.
in some sort of recording than it does writing. I mean, writing can be beautiful, but it depends on how the person's
Mm.
able to process that, maybe write and record a message. But
Mm.
if you can leave that message and develop that, restore that connection again. And I wonder if
Mm.
the narcissistic personality is because they're actually disconnected. They're
Yeah.
disconnected from their relationships. You know, when you think about med
Mm.
school and all of these programs, they get quite disconnected, firstly from studying, but also
Yeah.
that terrible year where they're you know,
Mm.
pushed through that internship year. And
Mm.
hell or high water, they've got to make it through. And they've probably lost a lot of friends that are outside the medical system within that period of
Yep.
time. So
Yep.
everyone that they know
Yep.
is within the medical system. And they become quite
Yep.
isolated. Everything they talk about is going to be medical
Yep.
related. And then they don't
Yep.
actually have the ability to, they're disconnected. So then they're given this, you know, job, and
Mm.
then automatically,
Mm.
how can I maintain my position? Because if you don't have
Yeah.
relationships,
Yeah.
it's all about position.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Um,
interesting, isn't it? It's like these little seeds that you
mm.
put out as women,
Yeah.
that will
Yeah.
heal people.
I definitely. I would even go so far as though it's tricky. I would agree with all of that, and I'd add something to it. As someone who's been isolated for most of my life, it is about relationships and it's not.
Mm,
If you don't have a good relationship with yourself, you don't have good relationships. And that's something that I've learned through therapy. That even though I tried my best with my family of origin, I still have to part ways with them.
yeah.
And that is not neither narcissistic, empath, any other thing like that. Because if you've done the wrong thing emotionally and psychologically, and even medically by someone, sometimes you have to part ways.
Yes, it's the wisdom, isn't it?
And this is,
Wisdom to know when to establish a relationship and when to let it go. Because if you're
yeah,
going to be in that frequency and that energy, you're going to become,
mm,
it's going to pull you down all the time, right?
yep, yep. And unfortunately, I've learned over time that they just pull me down
Mm.
and I cannot be around them. And I'm accused of everything under the sun and they never look at themselves.
Yeah.
So it's huge. So I guess sometimes, so there's the saying, and I'll take something from one from my father. If we point the finger, there's three fingers pointing back at us. So the number one thing I've learned through therapy training, providing therapy, this is kind of why I talk about myself, but not in a great kind of way. It's literally that I'm talking about myself as this is what I've experienced and this is what I've helped other people with. And I hope I'll be remembered for that, because if you don't put the mask on yourself, like the oxygen mask, so you need the oxygen mask, not the muzzle mask first. So, and that can be breath work or other things. But if we don't put those, that kind of oxygen on ourselves first, then we have nowhere to breathe with the rest of our relationships.
Yes.
The muzzle mask makes us all dogs.
Very true. So I know you have to go soon, Renee.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to close with, or what is there something that you'd like to add to today's discussion? And I know that I'm just going to say right now that people can reach out to you. You do counselling, coaching, consulting, supervision. You do it for couples, families, practitioners, leaders, and organisations. You do mind, body, spirit awareness, leadership development, practical discernment for people navigating complex personal, professional, and health-related realities. And you're also an author of 2 books, which we will all link to in the description and the various channels it's going to have posted on. Your website, reneemcdonald.com and wellbeingforme.com. I'm just going to put that in now, so then we can,
Thank you.
Like to close with.
Outside of all the bells and whistles and things I've done in my life, I was taught a few things in my original training. Keep looking at yourself, not from looking in the mirror, but keep looking at your behaviors, keep looking at what you've done, keep looking at things from a reflective point of view. And do your best to keep doing your best. And it's up to you to make your own ethical, moral, legal, and other decisions. Not up to the police, not up to the doctors, not up to anyone. You have to live with yourself at the end of the day. You have to be able to sleep at night. And if you don't have a good hard look in the mirror at yourself and own that, then it comes back to bite you. The problem with all this COVID times is it kept us all in this bind, so none of us were looking at our own behaviours. This is what we need to start looking at. And doctors can't be police. They can't police us, and neither should the government police us. Leave the police to the police and don't control the police. They need to make decisions based on law and legality and ethical and moral principles. I see the problem is so many layers to this, and I guess it's more just like from, the bottom line is, how can we reconnect to others if we don't even know ourselves? That's actually what I was always trained in. And if we know ourselves, then we can connect. But the more you're worried, the more you're traumatized, the more you're damaged by what other people have done to you or by you or whatever, then the less you can connect. But the more other people keep damaging you, again, the more you have to walk away. So it's not necessarily narcissistic or any of that if you have to walk away for your own sanity. Sometimes for your own sanity, you have to walk away. But then other times, you need to reconnect. And the question is, when is the right time for those things?
Yeah.
And only you know when the right time is. And then, there's restorative practitioners out there, there's therapists out there, there's coaches. I'm even happy to have people contact me for me to refer people on elsewhere, because I've got a lot of networks, thankfully, because 24 years in my industry, I've regularly, and part of it has been I've regularly, when something's come up in my life, I've then gone back to therapy, then learned something new and brought it back. That's why I've got all the different things that I do. It's more just because I've kept learning. I'd encourage everyone to keep learning, keep growing. And when you think it's the end, maybe it's just a new beginning.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to end it. So thank you so much, Renee, for your time today and sharing your wisdom with us. And thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you.